Section 5.5, using symbols to subtract fractions. This is exactly the same as when you're adding fractions. You need to find a common denominator. In other words, the bottom needs to be the same in order for you to subtract. So let's look at this one here. It says 4/5 take away 1/5. You're going to be left with something fifths, so the bottom number does not change. So 4 pieces take away 1 out of 5 pieces will give you 3 out of 5 pieces, or 3/5 left. That one's nice and easy because the bottoms are already the same. The denominators are common. But what do you do if the denominators are different? So you look at this one's different and this one's different. The easiest way is to look at the two of them and say, okay, can I make them both the same? Can I change one of these fractions, or I might have to change both of them, to make sure that they both have a common or same denominator on the bottom? Now for this one, it's pretty easy to see. 2, well, you can make that become 8 pretty easily by multiplying by 4. But I'm going to, for the sake of following the same steps or process, I'm going to work it out. All right, what I need to do is go and count my multiples of 2. In other words, count by 2's. 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. On this side, I'm going to count by 8's, or multiples of 8. 8, 16, and so on. I don't have to go any further because I can find the lowest one that they have in common, or the lowest common multiple. In this case, it's going to be 8. 8 is the one that they will have the same. So I'm going to have to make both denominators become 8. This one's already 8, so we don't have to touch that one. This one, to make it become something over 8, we'll have to times it by 4. So 2 times 4 will give us 8. But of course, whatever we do to the bottom, we must do to the top if we don't want to actually change the fraction. So this fraction now becomes 4 on top, and then 8 on the bottom, and this side stays the same, so it's still subtract 1/8. Now it's just simply a subtraction problem. 4 take away 1 is 3, and of course, we're left with 8ths. So that's always what you'll do. Sometimes you can just look at it and tell right away what they have in common. Let's look at another example. This one here, oh, the bottoms are the same. How nice. So we know it's going to be 8 on the bottom when we're subtracting. So 7 subtract 3 pieces will leave you with 4/8. So that one's easy. This one on the bottom right here, you've got 4 and you've got 12. Now, most of you will look at that and say, oh yeah, 4 goes into 12 nicely. So all I got to do is times it by 3. Or you could list the multiples of 4. So I got 4, 8, 12. Hey, look at that. The lowest common one, if I list the multiples of 12, is 12, 24. So right away, 12 is what we're going to have to make both of these become. So I'm going to have to times it 3 times in order to get 12 on that side. So let's go ahead and do that. And I will go and times this by 3. So I'd better do the same with the top to make an equivalent fraction, that is 9/12. Now I'll subtract 1/12, and I will be left with 8/12. Now, we could leave it like that, but is there something we can reduce each number by? Can we divide each one of these by something in order to make it smaller? And the answer is, we could divide this by 4, or we could even divide it by 2. So let's do it. They're both even numbers, so let's divide them by 2. And we'll be left with 8 divided by 2 is 4. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Oh, but we can divide it by 2 again. So we'll end up with 2 and 3. So there's our final answer, 2/3. Now, if you're really swift, you'll probably realize that I could have divided 8 by 4 and 12 by 4, and I would have ended up with 2/3 without having to go through that same step twice. Hey, here's another one here. We have 2/3 and 2/10. Now, the issue with this one here is that if I go over and I say 3 doesn't go in the 10, so it's not going to work out nicely. So let's list the multiples of 3. So we got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and I could keep going and going and going to 18, 19, 20, 21, 24, 27, 30, and I could keep going. Now, if I list my multiples of 10, well, it's easy, count by tens. 10, 20, 30. What's the lowest one they have in common? Well, 30 is the lowest they have. So we got to make both of those numbers have 30 in the denominator, or the bottom. So how can we make this 3 become 30? We'll times it by 10. And you better do that to the top as well. How can you make this 10 become 30? We will times it by, we will times it by 3. And you'd better do the same thing with the top. So now we're going to make both of these denominators are going to be 30. Because 3 times 10 is 30. 3 times 10 is 30, and 3 times, so that's easy. Now let's work the first one out. 2 times 10 is 20. What was 2 times 3? 6. So 20 take away 6 will leave you with 14 over 30. And of course you can reduce both of these by dividing them by 2 to simplify it. So I could divide 30 by 2 and 14 by 2, and my final answer will be 7 over 15 for my answer. Now, this answer here is not wrong, but it's not reduced, and usually you will be asked to reduce it to its lowest. And I put a little note here, don't forget to write or reduce your fraction to simplest form. Okay, last example. I've got 5/8 and I have 1/6. Now, if I know something that will multiply by 8 and something that'll multiply by 6 that I can get right away, I could do it. Or I could list my multiples of 8. So I got 8, 16, 24. Now I'm going to list a few of these guys. 6, 12, 18, 24, and right away my lowest one I come to is 24. So let's do that. Make both the denominators 24. So I'll times this by 3, because 3 times 8 is 24. And I better do the same with the top. What do I have to multiply this 6 by to make it 24? 6 times 4 is 24. If you weren't sure what to multiply by, or how many times you had to multiply it, when you wrote out your denominators, your lowest common multiples, you could have just done this. 8, 16, 24. So how many times did I have to do it? 1, 2, 3 times. So you could have went times 3. For this one, it said 6, 12, 18, 24. How many times? 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So I multiply that by 4. Okay. So now our answers down below will be 15 over 24, take away 4 times 1 is 4 over 24. So 15 take away 4 will leave me with 11 over 24. And that's as low as you can go. And that's it. You can't make that one any lower than what it is.